3 hours have passed since nightfall. You lie inside a hut framed with mammoth bones and draped in animal hides. Outside, the temperature is dropping below freezing. You are not in a deep sleep. You never are not on nights like this. You drift between wakefulness and sleep. Your ears remain alert. And then you hear a faint sound at the edge of the camp. It isn't the wind. You might think the greatest danger of the Ice Age was the cold. Everyone thinks that. But your ancestors didn't die from the cold as often as you might imagine. They had learned to master the cold tens of thousands of years before your time. What they never fully conquered was the darkness and the things that lived within it. If you were living through that night, whether or not you were still breathing at dawn depended on a single thing: knowing how to listen to the darkness. You know that Ice Age humans used fire to survive. That is true, but in a way more peculiar than you might think. At a site along the Dniester River in Ukraine known as Korman, archaeologists have unearthed 3 ancient hearths. Analysis reveals that people of that era burned primarily spruce wood, occasionally adding animal bones and fat to intensify the heat, with some fires reaching temperatures exceeding 600 degrees Celsius. This demonstrates a highly sophisticated level of fire control, achieved right when the world was at its coldest point in human history. Yet, here is the mystery. Archaeologists have found almost no well-preserved hearths from the very coldest period, roughly 26,500 to 19,000 years ago. If fire was so vital, why did the evidence vanish precisely when humans needed it most? Even researchers lack a definitive answer. Perhaps the cycle of freezing and thawing destroyed the traces. Or perhaps fuel had simply become scarce. Or perhaps humans relied on something other than just fire to survive the night. This brings us back to the mammoth bone hut. A fire didn't burn all night. It couldn't. Fuel was limited, and an all-night blaze required someone to stay awake constantly to tend it. So, as the fire died down, the darkness wasn't merely an abstract enemy. It was a space where other creatures were on the move. You were not the only nocturnal species on that landscape. Cave lions larger than today's African lions once roamed Ice Age Europe. Archaeologists discovered a 48,000-year-old cave lion skeleton in Germany bearing marks indicating it had been killed by a human spear thrust, the earliest direct evidence of humans taking down a large predator. But that relationship went both ways. At another site in North Africa, archaeologists found a prehistoric human femur broken and bearing tooth marks concentrated on the softer parts of the bone. The signs indicated it had been gnawed by a hyena. Humans were not always the hunters. Sometimes you were the prey. And this is what makes your modern-day fear of the dark more significant than you might realize. A study of modern African lions recorded over 1,000 attacks on humans in southern Tanzania over 2 decades and found that attacks spiked on the darkest nights, when the moon was absent. Moonlight was a line of survival. The fear of the dark is not a random emotion. It is a warning system fine-tuned over hundreds of thousands of years, teaching your ancestors, when you cannot see, be doubly vigilant. That also explains something curious about how your ancestors slept. Scientists have studied the sleep patterns of modern hunter-gatherer communities, such as the Hadza in Tanzania and the San in Namibia, groups that live in a manner most closely resembling the prehistoric ancestors we can observe today. The results: they sleep an average of only about 6.5 hours a night, less than modern people do. Furthermore, their sleep is neither deep nor continuous. They wake up multiple times throughout the night. There is a hypothesis for this known as the sentinel hypothesis. Those brief awakenings during the night are not a bodily malfunction, but a strategy. There is always someone in the group who is semi-alert, listening. If you have ever startled awake at 3 a.m. for no apparent reason, it might be a mechanism left over from an era when sleeping soundly through the night meant no one was standing guard. Picture yourself back in your mammoth bone hut. That sound at the edge of the camp, it could be the wind. It could be a small animal. It could be something larger, probing the boundary of the firelight. You will never know for sure, at least not that night. But your body reacted exactly as it was meant to. Alert, listening, and ready. You survived the night not just because of the fire, but because of an entire system, a sturdy shelter, a skillfully managed fire, and a brain that never fully shut down while darkness still lingered. You no longer live in a mammoth bone hut. There are no cave lions outside your window. But that part of your brain, the part that makes you feel uneasy walking alone in the dark, the part that causes you to jolt awake in the middle of the night for no reason, has not disappeared. It is still standing guard, still waiting for a sound at the edge of the darkness. Ancestral past. And if your body still harbors a fear of the dark from the Ice Age, then perhaps it is holding on to far more than you realize. For instance, why your sleep is so disrupted these days, even though you have nothing left to fear.